got nothing to do this
We are live. We are live.
God bless.
We are we are live with Joey and Len. Joey tweets, and your Twitter handle, Len, is Canadian BTC.
The BTC price bot.
The BTC price bot.
Yeah.
The BTC price bot.
Mm-hmm.
The day you made that Twitter handle, what was going through your mind? The BTC.
It was just going to be a bot that just talked about the price of Bitcoin. That's it.
And then you turned into a human?
Eventually, yeah.
Okay.
I slowly transitioned. I decided to come out of my shell.
Did you? Good for you.
Unfortunately for everybody else.
No, very fortunately. Thanks, guys, for coming back. This was at our request that we wanted you guys back because we love talking to you guys. What's with the T-shirt there, Len? To the Bitcoin golden age.
This is
you don't have one.
yeah.
Oh, is this your T-shirt?
No.
Oh, what's the deal?
So I picked up this shirt. It was a collaboration effort between ShakePay and Tahini's Restaurant. And this was an event in the Tahini's in Hamilton, which we all attended. I think you were there too, Joey, right?
Yes, sir.
And the shirts were there. We snagged them, and it was great. So, yeah, anything else to add to that? Or
Gosh, thanks for grabbing me one.
It was, you know when it was? It was the day after we
I remember, yeah.
did the panel. Which, by the way, I owe you a beer because you bought for the entire crew there. We're going to make that public here today on the Your Life, Your Terms.
I was leaving first, man. I had to pay.
Incredible.
That's the way it works. If you're the guy that gets out first, you got to pay the bill. I mean, if you're ruining the party by leaving. So, yeah, it's no problem.
it was awesome once you left. Thanks for leaving.
It was a good party.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Listen, guys, congrats on the podcast. I know you're getting some great guests. You had Mike Green on, I think, yesterday or the day before, recently, depending on when you're listening to this. And you had, is it Doomberg?
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't know about this guy or girl. I don't know who this person is, but a big following on Twitter. You guys are really starting to get some great guests on there.
I appreciate that. It's been quite a journey. I think Len and I are talking to each other. I was thinking about this the other day. I would say before 6:30 every morning, you and me are trading messages about the show.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah. So we've been really trying to grow. We appreciate that. Of course, you guys helped us out a bit too. You know, when we came on here a few months ago, the show was significantly smaller. In the last probably 3 months, the growth has been bananas.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
Yeah.
I think you guys are just doing great stuff, and we need more people talking about what you talk about. So I'm curious, over the last few months, has there been any guest that's really kind of shocked you a little bit, like really surprised you in any way, or just all different?
Off the top of my head, it's hard to say because I can just remember the last two guests. There's so much going on with our podcast. It's hard for me to dig back. Who do we even have the last couple of weeks? Anything that comes to mind for you?
Man, I think we had a good guest. Doomberg was really good. So to answer your question, he's part of a team of former commodities executives, commodities researchers. I think he himself is actually a trained scientist in, I wish I knew the space, maybe energy or something like that. I'm not sure, but he was a really good guest. I think that whole bear cave thing is going to be good because, as you guys know, your Twitter feed now, what's it look like? It's Bitcoin, 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 real estate. It's all bull case for all the stuff you guys like, right? One of the things I think we're trying to do, at least with this different segment, is we got to show what some of the risks are, where some of the shortcomings are, because if we don't know, how are we going to address them? We're not sure. So that's one. Excuse me. Doomberg was a good guest. We had Adam O'Brien on from Bitcoin Well, too, who I thought was also pretty good. That was the day that Canada started rolling out or started talking about rolling out that, limits on buying certain tokens. He had a lot to say about that and some of the KYC processes that are evolving in the country. It's all good stuff, man. There's,
So with the bear case angle, that's your attempt to bring out the threats to Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah.
And what do you think what's the biggest one that comes to mind right now?
It's government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Regulation.
I mean, what else? I mean, unless you guys have a separate opinion or a different opinion, but to me, I think that no matter what angle you take on the threats in the next 2 or 3 years, most of them either start with or end with government help, as far as I can tell, right?
Yeah, it would only be a currency that was put together globally, that's gold-backed really strongly, that all the sovereigns agree that this is going to be the settlement currency of the world, and there is some limit to it using gold as a backing, and we're going to audit it, and we're going to document who has how much gold. That to me would be a legit threat, because now there's some form of money out there that has some hard backing. I don't know if it still would scare me entirely, but that would be something that I would consider oh, okay. So if they came up with a better form of money, that's a bit of a threat.
Is that possible? Do you think that's even in the realm of possible?
No.
So, yeah, I'm in that camp as well. I don't think that's even.
The other one to me is just the regulation. If they get the on ramps and off ramps, they tie those up so poorly with the KYC and taxes, and they just tax the crap out of it and stuff. And it doesn't have to be every country. And I know there's then the game theory plays out, and there's these other countries. But if you get the big ones, so when the China mining ban came out, like so many of them went to the States, went to other countries. But if a few of the big countries got together and they all did it, it takes the majority of things really kind of, it suppresses it quite heavily because you take the majority of the funds out of that space overall. So there's still that, I feel like that exists. I went through this same exercise in June because I had to test my theories. Well, I mean, I always do, like and no different than what's happening with real estate with rising interest rates and how, we've talked about supply and demand so long, and I've had to revisit some of those numbers and just to see if I purposely look at the bear case because I want to test my own theory. I'm like, okay, am I missing something? Right. So, but I still think that's an actual, I think it gets less and less by the day that it doesn't happen. And the more regulation that comes out, I think the chances of it happening are diminished. But I still think it exists. And I think it exists more now than I did maybe even 4 to 6 months ago.
I think you're right. And I would also add that, if COVID showed us one thing, it's that regulation doesn't have to be broadly applied. You just have to make an example of a few people with more means and more ability to disobey that regulation than you. And if they fall in line, well, fuck, you better fall in line too, because if you don't, you're not going to have the firepower to push back, the legal firepower, the whatever economic capacity to push back. You see this all the time. So to your point about the largest countries maybe trying to smother this thing, in those countries, you only have to get, 1,000, 2,000 people to bend the knee publicly, and then what happens next?
Yeah, the majority of people then do it. Yeah.
I wonder if there's a different way. Like Luke Groman just shared a great article on Twitter on a recent podcast where he was some guy who's been in the gold market forever. He was actually one of the guys who make the gold coins. I don't know, smelt it down or whatever the process is. And they were in basically cahoots with the Bank of International Settlements for saying, hey, we're actually going to give you this much gold, but they don't really. They just do it on paper, and it's suppressing the gold market. I wonder with the futures market with Bitcoin, like could there be, it's not regulations, but just the banking sector say, okay, you know what? We will come out with an ETF because everybody who wants it can then buy it. But really the ETF doesn't have jack shit behind it. And
I want you to listen to the part of the show we did on Monday with Doomberg because Tuesday because he talks about this and the reason the ETF doesn't work for Bitcoin. Generally, the sort of TLDR is those spot ETFs settle in the currency or commodity that they're being denominated in. People don't care if you want to settle in oil. It's fine. No one cares about that. That market's owned by governments and manipulated probably by governments. Same goes for gold. But the Bitcoin market's a little different. And
so he thinks they'll settle in Bitcoin.
Well, they will. The question is, will governments allow that settlement? It really takes away this sort of this box that the U.S. dollar is in, right? The KYC AML box. And I see on our Reddit comments, people are saying, well, it's no different than gold. It's no different than oil. The mechanism is not different, but the end product is not of the same sort of recognition. It doesn't have the same kind of name power for governments that gold and oil do. So naturally, they're not going to want that. So I don't know. The spot ETF thing is interesting, but you guys are Bitcoiners, investors. Do you care about a spot ETF?
No.
Me neither. And I think most people, like if you really want a leveraged exposure to Bitcoin that doesn't settle in Bitcoin, just buy MSTR, buy the miners like we talk about. Like there's 100 different options that make more sense than buying a spot ETF that, by the way, you can't take possession of. You can't say, oh yeah, I want to pull this down to my cold storage wallet or whatever. You're never going to be allowed. Those guys are never going to let that fly.
And it's much more easily auditable. I mean, that's the beauty of Bitcoin.
But I think most people don't care.
They don't. You're right.
That's where we'll discuss this sometimes because a lot of the points that you make about that stuff, I agree with them and they're valid. But I think they're only valid to a subset of the market. And most people are like, I don't care. Yeah, I have Bitcoin. Well, oh yeah, what do you want? A spot ETF?
Sorry, what point are you arguing?
And that they don't care, and they will put money into the spot ETF.
The average investor, yeah.
The average investor, they don't care about all this other stuff. Oh, get your own coins, custody them, and all that stuff. They don't matter.
Nick, the counterpoint though, how long did it take you to go from I have Bitcoin to I need it in my cold wallet?
Pretty quickly.
Everyone goes pretty quick. So I don't know what that funnel is like these days. I would guess it's quicker than when we did it, probably quicker than when you did it. Question is, does the bank want to have to go through this process of, okay, well, we're going to try and physically settle the Bitcoin spot that people are buying the same way you could settle. I think you can settle GLD, right? I'm pretty sure you can settle GLD if you want to.
There's like minimums. When I look into it,
pretty
there's
large.
a minimum.
Okay.
It's a pretty decent size.
But you can.
It's possible.
Theoretically, you can do it. Okay. So like, does the bank really want to get into this conversation where they're saying to people who don't know anything about like a Ledger, Trezor, Cold Card, like you want to settle it? Okay, well, send me your ShakePay wallet, send me your, like, there's no, the banks.
What's your
can't-
receiving
the banks,
address?
Yeah, the banks, they don't have the capacity for that, right? Like, who's doing that for you at the bank? No one. The people at the bank, sometimes they miscount the cash. How are they going to get the,
But-
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
The banks, it's huge, and they could have a certain section. I'm not trying to say that this is possible, but they would spin up a certain section of the bank that may be experts in this type of thing and have the knowledge and know-how in order to deal with these type of requests. Now, I'm not saying this is possible, but in terms of the ETF, if it ever is approved, not saying it will happen. I'm still debating if it does happen. It just adds a level of legitimacy to Bitcoin that does not exist right now. But it also opens up the door for institutional investors for another way to buy into Bitcoin rather than getting a spot ETF or them buying shares into a competing company. So that opens up doors for more money to flow into Bitcoin. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just maturing of the market. Will it happen? I don't know.
this is the next rabbit hole I want to go down. And maybe you guys know about this. I don't want to do it today, but in my own time, I need to figure out what this institutional investment threshold is that I keep hearing about. It's going to add legitimacy for institutions to buy it. Why can't these institutions just buy and hold spot? Like, why do they need an ETF?
That's
why do they?
Great question.
I have
It's
no
the
idea.
custody. It's the custody.
But, like, what-
who
so-
holds the? They just don't have the processes in place.
Is that it?
Yes.
It's an in-house.
Well, I think
No.
it's a step before that. When I talk to some institutional investors here in Toronto, it's more that it doesn't even enter their investment criteria. Like, it's not even on their roadmap right now.
Right, because
They're,
they have like a board.
they have a set
yeah,
investment
yeah,
strategy, approved by whoever is doing it, the board of that fund, whatever it is. Then they have the portfolio managers, then they have the traders, and all together, nobody has it on their sites right now.
They need-
Never mind custody. So your point's valid.
Yeah.
But then the next point is, who's going to take responsibility if they do try and custody it?
Self responsibility.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right, and
they'll
it is
never happen.
it's totally laughable. But I agreed. It's-
Before you get into topics here, this is a I gotta get one of these things because I know they're floating around all over the place with True North Strong and Free on the front.
it's a collector's item, isn't
I
it
know,
great?
I know.
So I just want to point out something. You guys were talking about attack vectors and potentially from government. Two things happened this past week, 2 weeks, that we're not talking about today. At least we haven't talked about it yet. Number one, Canada has decided to limit how much you could buy for stuff not named Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, and Bitcoin Cash. $30,000 is the threshold you could purchase per year. That's
Unless you're an accredited investor, correct?
That's
what
right,
what
that's
constitutes as accredited
I
investor.
think it's $1 million liquid net worth or $300,000 in
So-
family income. Yeah, for many people.
So there you go. So they're already the battlegrounds are that they're drawing the lines in the sand. But the second thing is United States government. I forget which department it was, but they decided to sanction Tornado Cash, open source code, never done before.
Yeah, that one's ridiculous.
Where are they going to go? How much further is this going to go?
Can
I
you
don't
just
know.
describe for everyone listening who might not know what they did there with Tornado Cash, what Tornado Cash was, just at a high level, and what they did?
I'll
Just a
try
little-
my
yeah,
best
No, just
to-
a little bit, just
No,
to
but
frame
just-
it.
just high
so
level.
Yeah.
someone listening who's not aware.
So it's a way that you could hide your tracks. It's a mixing service. So if you have ETH and there's KYC, know your customer, they know who owns it. So if you use Tornado Cash, it's a mixing service. At the end, it just mixes it. So
So if you buy some ETH,
and you don't want them to know, them being the government, the KYC,
Or anyone.
it's the connection is lost. If you try
Yeah, you
following,
can transfer it into there. It gets mixed up with other ETH, and you can withdraw the same amount, and you can no longer see the trail on the blockchain of whose wallet it is.
so it prevents the government or whoever's looking at it, any blockchain analysis, to figure out who spent ETH. They can figure out how much ETH was spent because they can still look at it, but who spent that particular ETH once the chain is the break is made in the chain.
so it's like a privacy service. And what did the government do?
They sanction it. So anybody that's using it moving forward, they're going to look at the addresses of where it's going through, and those addresses will be potentially blacklisted, and they're going to.
And I think in Denmark, is it Denmark?
Yeah,
They
Netherlands.
arrested the developer. Netherlands?
Yes.
The Netherlands, they arrested the lead developer and shut down this person's.
it's a developer. I don't know if it's the lead developer,
Okay.
but it's
But
somebody.
they arrested. Is this guy still in jail?
I don't know.
Custody?
If
So-
you had to guess, what would you guess?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
So I believe.
good way to put it. Yeah.
So I got some more information about this. I think the reason why they snagged him is because he was profiting from it. So as there's a cost.
Oh, was he?
There's a fee associated with using Tornado Cash, where every time you use it, the developers or whatever they
Just
snag.
seems like a normal business.
And
Yeah, but then the argument about open source versus now is not necessarily open source because there's a profit being made. So then they
They have a
probably
token.
use that.
They have a token. They have a
Yeah.
Discord.
Or do they?
That's the thing that's flying under the radar. These people, not that you're doing this, but like these people raising alarms about, oh my goodness, it's code. Don't be dumb. These guys had a chat. They have a central team that controls sort of the fee structure and does promotions and things like that. You can't do that, okay? Like, that's not allowed.
So the way this kind of went down is then some addresses were identified, and then USDC, which is owned by the company Circle, said these addresses were given to us by the U.S. government. If anybody is using USDC, which is a crypto representation of the U.S. dollar, we are not going to allow that to be used on the Ethereum network.
Yeah, it's essentially blacklisted so that the transactions will never be.
And because Circle is a centralized authority, the government has a single attack vector where they can just go and say, hey, listen, you got to shut down these addresses, which makes me like Bitcoin.
I love the fact that
No,
someone,
why are you smiling there, Len?
No, I
well, I was going to say I love the fact that someone went on and started sending little bits of Tornado Cash to all these like celebrity addresses, like Jimmy Fallon got some and stuff, and some
We sent some to Len.
to blacklist all their addresses. I started laughing when I saw the list of of people that were doing that. That's hilarious.
Because it kind of lays bare the uneven application of the law, right? As if everyone doesn't know this already. But do you think anyone's knocking on Fallon's door with an AR-15 at 4 a.m. to see where his Tornado Cash wallet is? Like, no, of course they're not. Shaquille O'Neal, no. Lady Gaga, whoever else, whatever other celebrities were scamming people with NFTs a year ago, no. But this guy in Denmark or whatever, Norway, wherever, some Nordic country, he gets nabbed at an airport for running a Discord. Like, whether it's legal or not legal, do we have to pick this guy up at an airport? Do we have to make a scene about it? Does it have to be front page news? Does it have to be this, that, the other thing? Like, again, to what we were talking about earlier, Nick, like, is this a guy they're making an example of? You better not run a mixing service. There's mixing services on Bitcoin too that are much more decentralized. Whirlpool, for example, that Samurai Wallet runs. There's no like token or anything like that, but they run promos sometimes on the fees. Like, is that enough?
So is this just the beginning then?
It's a great question. I don't know. I mean, it's just the beginning of everything, I think. But the real question is, and this is like something that's in the Sovereign Individual, which I see you have a copy of behind you there. Governments are constantly playing catch up. They're reactionary by nature. The problem is that the gap between what civilians are able to do with very little friction as far as development and deployment is way ahead of the same thing for the government at this point. And that gap is growing. So you're going to see more desperate action, I think, in the next little while from most first world governments. What it's going to look like, I have no idea. No one does. But if you had to guess, again, like, is it going to be worse than this or better than this? I would guess way worse.
Why did they do this? What was the official reason?
North Korean money being laundered through,
Yes.
which, by the way, like, they've yet to verify as far as I can
I just heard money laundering. I didn't hear.
really?
I didn't hear the North Korean angle. I just heard money laundering reasons,
Yeah, so
which makes sense. I mean, look, it's an easy way to justify because it is definitely a way to launder money.
yeah,
of course.
But so are ATMs. I mean, I know people that have ATMs and they make cash, put them. Well, I don't know. I want to be clear.
You've never
I used
actually
to
known
know.
anyone.
it's allegedly you heard of somebody.
But yeah, but it's just they put the cash in ATMs, and the ATM then now cash ends up in their bank account. I mean, there's people that go to casinos with cash and they get chips. They gamble a little bit, and there's different. So if you're really after every avenue of money laundering, I mean,
No, this is big because there has been a large number of hacks this past year, and a lot of ETH, I don't know the exact number, but has been stolen as a result of these hacks. And it's presumed that North Korea was behind it, and they're an enemy of the state. So if that's all true, then of course Tornado Cash is going to be something they're going to be dealing with, and they have done it. So moving forward, is Bitcoin or one of the mixing services for Bitcoin going to be on it? Potentially, I don't know. They're not going to stop here, I presume, because it doesn't make sense. Just do this and stop.
And on Bitcoin, I guess you could stop a mixing service if it's run by somebody or some organization, but to blacklist addresses is more difficult because who would ultimately care?
You just have to do someone who's got more firepower than you. If someone comes down and, let's say, I don't know, Rockstar Real Estate Plus, okay, your biggest rival in the real estate game. They got a node too. They're running a podcast, not as successful. Certainly the guests are not as handsome. And the government comes down on them and says, hey, I want you to shut down this node. We're confiscating your Bitcoin. We're freezing your assets until we figure out where this money came from. You guys are going to be talking to each other for sure. The same day you find out, what are we going to do? What's the plan? And the natural response for almost everyone is going to be, we got to lay low. We got to lay low. We got to stop using the service. We got to do this, that, the
can
other
you
thing.
find out where the nodes are? Can you get IP addresses from the nodes?
Great idea.
No,
Great
you
question.
can't.
Yeah,
No.
we should know that.
No, because they do run a lot of them run on Tor. They don't run on ClearNet, so it's hard to find out.
You run yours on Tor?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you just run it on like a regular connection at home, there's an IP address associated with it. It's something that people can find out and locate it.
I assume so. I'm not exactly sure about the technicalities behind it, but if you do run on ClearNet, you run the risk of getting found out. If it's run on Tor, it's possible.
What's ClearNet? You're more techie
So
than
like
I am.
an
ClearNet's
open
just,
IP. Regular
it's just a regular net.
regular
yeah.
IP.
Sorry, yeah. So it's just like use your phone or your computer, not behind a firewall.
Yeah,
sorry, not
gotcha,
behind
gotcha.
a VPN or
Proxy
anything.
or something.
Yeah, so that's ClearNet.
Anyway, I don't want to derail. I remember last time we were here, you had this long list of stuff, this like immaculately prepared.
Okay, then what's going on with your bank account?
But hold on one second. Hold on 1 second about this Bitcoin
From
stuff.
one form of censorship to the next.
Yeah, but about this Bitcoin stuff, about the mixing, like, isn't it? If let's say they got rid of the mixing services, right? Ultimately, isn't that a good thing for the longevity? Like, isn't like because there's the argument made by a bunch of people that more regulation and bringing it into like a having understanding of it, it's not good for. I understand for the anonymous side of it, right? So they can track you, they can see the transactions. But overall, if you want it to succeed for longevity, and it makes the path easier to that. So isn't there that side?
In the existing system, it makes it easier.
I can
Yeah.
give you an
The
example.
Existing system. I really don't care as much about the sustainability, and I know this sounds bad and wrong. I don't like the existing system. I ultimately think there's a lot of pain ahead for us based on where this system is headed. So I think we need to come to a new system. So I think with what you're saying is it helps this current system because if everybody's feeling good about it and, you can't make it anonymous and we can put regulations and it's like we can all pat each other on the back and say, hurrah, and like Bitcoin's good and it's safe. But this system is headed to destruction. We know this current system's in a debt spiral that destroys itself and eats itself. I'd rather just get there sooner. And that's probably wrong of me because I think the sooner then there's more pain for everyone.
But for more people to be involved, this is my whole argument is you guys are like, really your principles are very strong around it. And I don't disagree with them.
Strong, but I think fair.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't disagree.
I've been called strong and fair many times. Yeah.
Strong's a stretch, but we're good.
Very fair. Very fair.
But
Emphasis on the fair.
but for more people to be involved, like they don't, those principles, they're not being involved for that. So for uptake, and then can't that be applied afterwards? Like, isn't this a better path overall?
You're talking about
maybe even a
making
quicker path, to be fair.
You're talking about making a deal with the devil almost, right? Like, how much do you want this thing to sustain? Are we willing to trade something like mixing services for longevity?
But see, what I think happens in these types of networks, so it's like when the internet started, right? You make a deal with the devil, essentially, because they were monitoring, and then slowly it takes on a life of its own. And then
It crushes the system.
and then
anyway.
it crushes the system anyways. So I think it's a quicker path that's easier because they're like, oh, we're going to control this. We're going to take it in. And then they don't realize that an open source network, they can't fucking control it, but their egos are so big. They think they can control everything. That's because I'm just looking at the internet and I'm like, I feel like it's kind of like that system with it. Because if they could go back, let's be honest, the internet would not be what it is today. There's nowhere near. Right. So that's what I fight with. That's just.
Well, let me give you an example then. If everything was KYC'd and there's nothing hidden, you can find out everybody's what they own, and you just examine the blockchain. If you do enough surveillance, you could find out how much and when people spend anything, and that's a scary thing to give up. In the current system, you don't have that. When I go to the store, nobody aside from the bank knows what I've done, what I purchased at that point. Even if I use cash, nobody knows anything.
Yeah.
But if I use a totally KYC'd Bitcoin, and anybody could find out anything they want. Well, there's a lot of information that they could find out about me, where I spend my money, when I spend my money. And I don't want that information.
No, and that I agree with. And then what I would say to that is that my point is, and I don't know if this would ever happen, but I'm like, once it gets big enough, because more people use it, then there's more incentive for people to then find a mixing service that they can't shut down, and all this other stuff that ended up happening with the internet and all these new innovations that came up. That's what I think. But because there's only a smaller number of people that are interested in it now, there's not as many of those options. There's not as much development. I mean, there's a lot of development going on, but anyways, I don't really know. Your bank account's more interesting, but that's my whole thing. That's
how did our bank account make it onto the topic?
Because that's
because that's all Len's talking about on Twitter.
I talk about nothing really on Twitter.
What do you want to know about the bank account?
Yeah,
this is a new ordeal for us.
What this to me is like.
Yeah,
I mean,
we want to know the number first of all.
Yeah, what's your account number?
Yeah, sure.
And
Routing.
do you have a extra debit card?
I'll just say this, okay? And when I say we, what I really mean is Len did a lot of legwork to find us a bank that would take us. Given that after we incorporated as Canadian Bitcoiners Inc., the trouble started. Started to see friction in places I was hoping I wouldn't see friction given the nature of the business. We don't deal in Bitcoin. We don't accept Bitcoin for payment. We don't pay people in Bitcoin. We don't do any of that stuff. All we do is talk. Sometimes we talk about economics. Sometimes we talk about housing. Sometimes we talk about Bitcoin. We talk about it a couple times a week. Our partners are ShakePay and Ledn, two biggest companies in the country when it comes to Bitcoin. Both of them are very bank friendly. I would argue too regulated for my taste, but I have no choice but to, take them on if I want the show to grow, and I like those companies. And so my hope was that, look, if you're going to look at us as part of your risk program or whatever, right, whatever your risk regime is as a bank, you're going to look at this and say, okay, these guys are taking payments from really reputable corporations in the country that have done the legwork. They've taken care of all this stuff already. Boy, was I fucking wrong. Okay, so we went to one other chartered bank.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to name it. Just I don't want
It was
to.
one of the big four. I don't know. Fuck them all
5.
anyway. 5. So and they basically told us to kick rocks.
You were about
Yeah.
to name your
Joey wants to.
I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Len's right. Sometimes I need to be told. So we went to one chartered bank.
He's staring
They
at
told
you
us-
pretty seriously.
they
here.
told
No,
us-
I want to. I'm staying clear.
Remember, we can edit anything if we need to.
And listen, I parked beside him. You're gonna have a hard time editing that out. So we had this chartered bank. I don't want to say we were everything short of a handshake, and they told us get lost. We can't do it. Blah blah blah. And gave us
Just based on the name.
same song and dance. They didn't tell us anything. They
Oh.
said we're not going to take you for our risk or whatever. Fine. So we ended up going down the ladder. Blah blah blah. Eventually, we find this place, Duca Credit Union in Burlington, right?
Yes.
They got a bunch of locations, but the one in Burlington is the branch we went to. This nice fella, who I won't name on the podcast, helped us open an account, went through the risk stuff with us, and actually, I think, advocated for us with their, I don't know what you would call that department.
Auditors, risk
Yeah.
management.
Something. They're RM people, exactly. And went to bat for us and said, look, I met these guys. This is the company. This is what they do. There's no problem. We took a couple of deposits. We've been getting paid in that account for, I don't know, a few months at least. I'm going to go into some detail here, Len. You tell me if it's too much, okay? We're waiting for a wire transfer from Ledn for the monthly
Sure.
invoice, right? And we're looking at each other before the show and after the show and going, hey, wait a minute. Like, didn't we send those guys that invoice like more than a month ago? Everything's net 30. Where's the invoice? So we start bothering their accounting people, and Mario Gibney's our sort of rep with them, or was anyway. I think he's moving on to bigger and better things within the company. But we're going, where's the money? And they're going, we sent it on this day. Here's the evidence or whatever. Calling Duca, they don't know anything about it. Okay. Before the show the other day, on Monday night, Len's like, yeah, I got some news. So whatever, I'm sitting on my computer, he's sitting on his computer, he pulls out this letter, delivered by registered mail. Because of the risk associated with your account, we're closing it. You got 28 days to GTFO. Okay, no problem. We started talking about it on Twitter. We got a little bit of traction, but that guy, Phil Taylor or whatever, coward, won't respond to my tweets. And Duca actually called me the next day about the wire transfer because I submitted a complaint on the weekend. The branch that we operate with called me about the transfer and had no idea about the action against the account.
Who's holding your wire right now?
No one. It just never went through. I don't know where it is. In the ether, for fuck's sake.
It may be coming in. We're not sure at this particular moment.
I'll
but
look right now. I'll look right now.
Go nuts.
I'll
So
look right now.
I just want to state one thing before we go any further. The branch in Burlington.
That everything we say today is actually our opinion. And
Yeah.
There's no parsing or bullshit disclaimers. Still not there.
The branch in Burlington and the staff over there, top notch. I have no problems with the staff over there. They've been really kind to us. They actually went above and beyond to help us out. So I give them kudos for the job that they've
Can you
done.
imagine you walk in and they're wearing your T-shirts?
Supporting us.
Yeah.
Hashtag,
want it?
hashtag
Yeah.
CBP.
Give them free T-shirts.
I
Let
don't
the whole
think-
branch
I
wear
don't
your
think-
T-shirts.
I don't
No,
think
it's not
they'll
going to
work. I don't
happen.
think they'll
That's
work.
not going
Not
to
gonna
no.
happen.
So yeah, they never got the news until I guess several days after the fact, and well, here we are. We're still trying to find.
We still haven't received a call from the branch on the topic.
No, I did.
You did?
I did, and
Okay.
I got it, and they're not aware of why
They
can't
still don't know.
they can't get any. This is information above and beyond them. This is not a branch level.
So this is
decision.
what you fucking get when you deal with Canadian banks, right? You get nothing but ivory towers, pearl clutching, too risky, too that. If I go on my phone right now, I can sign up for DraftKings with any of the big 5 charter bank credit cards and blow my fucking wad on the preseason Browns Bengals fucking first half over, okay, for 5 figures, and no one's gonna say anything about it. There's no risk there to anyone except me. They don't give a fuck. But we talk about Bitcoin among other things, right? Every week we have some reputable guests. We're sponsored by reputable companies, and what do we get? kicked in the pants. No explanation, no transparency, no nothing.
Well, I guess we got to get a backup bank account up and running.
You better.
After the show, I was going to ask you guys who banks you. You guys talk about Bitcoin
I
on
was
your
ta- I
show.
was talking
We actually
to Len.
might have a good contact for you.
A few things. Number one, it's sadly enough, I was looking to see if I had the ability to open a foreign bank account, because I have zero faith in actually opening up account right now.
We can't
And
get
again,
paid.
I'm just trying to play this out. I guess the companies that are paying you, it's still just easier for their accounting to pay you in dollars.
They would pay us in Bitcoin if we wanted. We
Yeah.
don't want it.
We want cash.
We talked about this before, okay? And this is like business on air, but we've discussed how we want to be paid. Me and Len are about a decade apart. We're in different stages of life. Okay?
Sure.
You guys know I'm shopping for a house right now in Dundas. That's not fun.
I'm shopping for retirement.
And he's ready. He's ready to pack it in, right? He doesn't need the monthly cash inflow. I would love the extra monthly cash, right? So we're in a bit of a different spot. So naturally, we settled on cash. You do with it whatever you want. I'll do with it whatever I
That
want.
makes sense.
And the problem is that to use the loonie, we got to go through these banks, and they won't let us.
How's your shopping experience? What's
It's been fine. The prices are becoming more reasonable, but the sellers are not. So
Yeah.
yeah.
They
There's
will.
no
They will
panic.
soon.
Yeah, we'll see after the next raise.
We went to see a place. My wife will never listen to this because she doesn't give a fuck what I do. So we went to see a place on Tuesday night. Was it? I forget. I told you
It was Tuesday.
Tuesday night, and beautiful place backing onto the ravine off of Robin Hood in Dundas.
Okay.
You know that area.
I don't think so.
All the streets are named after Robin Hood characters, which is ridiculous and stupid.
Okay.
Like we ran out of plants. We had to go with fucking anyway. It doesn't matter. So we
I don't mind it for some reason. Friar Tuck.
you talk about that all the time. I don't have time for that today. So we go to see this house. It's really nice, but it's dated. So original owner could be good, could be bad, right? The guy looks like he's taking care of it. Only downside is the back where the ravine is, beautiful view and everything. Don't get me wrong, but he didn't have a retaining wall there, so he's got a little bit more erosion than he should. I would have to put a retaining wall in. I am not the guy who's going to do that. I'll have to pay someone else to do that, et cetera, et cetera. Roof is probably about ready to be done. The guy listed it for 1.35 a month ago, dropped it to 1.99 or 1.199 2 weeks ago. We went to see it, talked to the neighbors. He has to be gone in October. Okay, he's got some other place in Dundas. He's downsizing. His real estate agent is actually, he is his real estate agent's fiance's uncle. So it's in the family. He's very stubborn. The real estate agent told us on the way out that there's been no other offers. We offered $1,050,000. That's the max I'm willing to pay for that place. It needs a lot of work. It's only about 1,200, 1,300 square feet, but it's nicer than my place in a nicer area. Fine. The guy comes back at $1,190,000. He came down a whopping $9,000. And he's like, and the realtor sends my realtor, an email, says, hey, if you guys want to, we're waiting for a counter offer. And we're going, don't hold your breath, man. Like, he came down $9,000. And the realtor called my realtor again the next day and said she was disappointed. So was the owner. We didn't want to play ball. I said, well, I don't have to play ball. In October, I'm going to offer you $1,025,000. You're going to have to take it. You're going to be on the street, man. Like, this is not how this works. And so, the sellers are not becoming more reasonable yet. But you're starting
We'll
to see.
We'll
I know
see.
you're
Yeah.
starting to see prices creep down a little bit,
Yeah.
right? Which has been good. But I don't know, man. Like, I also don't want to spend. Like, I tell Len all the
These guys
time,
are spending $1 million for a property. 35 years old.
have no choice.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Have no choice.
Yeah.
And and Len is doing great with the podcast. So hopefully we start making some money if we can get paid. I don't know. Why don't we just send
Len,
it to
can you
these
figure
guys?
this
If
out?
we send the money to them,
Don't
they
get
can
it
just
Hey,
send it
don't
back
involve
up.
our bank accounts. Hey,
I'll send Guido over. They'll
Listen.
take care of business.
Yeah, you met our bouncer. We're good. We got some.
We got some bouncers.
I was telling Len earlier, we got one of our bank accounts got closed down. I don't know, a few years ago. We just got a random letter. I guess they do these risk profiles on you every few years. We always have to fill out forms, even with our main accounts. What do you do? Where's the money come from? Where's it going? Do you have clients in the U.S.? This type of stuff. And then one of them, we had this bank account for like 10 years. It was one of these online banks that's owned by one of the big five banks, right? But we just kept some cash reserves there, like out of our main account. But if we needed something quick, we would
kind of
be
like
able
a
to get some
savings
cash.
account.
Yeah,
Almost.
yeah. So it was just a little bit of cash reserves there. And then we had one for different companies. We had them. This one we had it for a while. It was for the brokerage. They sent us a letter saying, "Hey, we won't do business with you because of the type of business," and they just shut us down. We had 30 days.
What is the? This is the other thing. 30 days. Like, do you think as a bank, again, like I'm really in la la land here saying this out loud, but like the bank obviously doesn't care, right? They're saying like, okay, you banked here for 10 years. We're telling you you're too risky. You have to be out in 30 days. Good luck finding another bank to take you.
But our business was a real estate brokerage.
You guys are
And I'm like, this is a-
reputable.
this
Like, what
is
are you
like
talking
a-
about?
yeah.
Do other people not own houses,
Other big-
flip homes,
well-
rent properties? Like,
Well, there's other big five banks that are like, they've openly asked when I've been there for other things. They're like, hey, like, why are you
Right.
doing business with these guys? Why don't you come over here? We'll make a package for you guys. Like, they want our business.
We've had insurance companies
so
on
it's just
properties
weird.
just turn us away too. Same thing, risk
Yeah.
management. We don't like your rental style on this particular property, on this particular street. We're pulling your policy.
On the insurance side, what we found out is that what happens is they'll be okay with a certain, so this type of property, let's say for instance, they might be okay with for a few years, but then they realize that they on their profiles, on their what they have under as insured, there'll be too many of those types of properties. So then all of a sudden they'll just change their underwriting policies that type of property that they were okay with is they're no longer taking on anymore.
Yeah.
So and then renewal, depending on what it is, they might not do, they'll do
so they're
different
kind of
things.
changing.
So
their
they have to
bell
balance
curve,
they have
Totally.
to change theirs. That's on the
And you just
insurance
get
company
caught up
side.
in that.
Now I could see that, and
That
somebody
makes
can
more
make-
sense in the bank side for sure. Yeah.
Now look at it from a different perspective. What if they banned you based on a name, a benign name?
Yeah.
A name.
Len is really.
I like this.
He's been beating this.
I
horse
like
to
this.
me for like the last.
I like
3 days.
this.
Yes,
Because
Like,
really, you're just a podcast. I don't mean
Yes.
just.
No,
I just
but it's
mean
all we
you're
are.
simply a podcast.
we don't mind Bitcoin. We, as Joey mentioned, we don't sell or deal with Bitcoin, the asset.
You're not even like talking about trading, even really on.
No, it would
This is
definitely.
a no financial advice disclaimer at the beginning of every episode.
So based
Isn't that-
off
that's
that,
all we have to do. I'm pretty sure. isn't it?
Somebody in risk management saw the word Bitcoin, hated you guys, out went the letter.
100%.
So there's no difference between us.
You know what? It's when the price dropped. They're like, forget it.
I bought the top
They
off
lost
you
some money and they were all pissed off and they wanted to
We got
take out the anger. on
That
you
guy's in
guys.
the comments
We are-
every week.
What happened to 288K? 288K.
But there's no difference between us and CBC. We are simply just
Oh, this is good. I can't wait to see where this goes.
Oh,
But-
there's a huge
This is-
difference.
this
No,
is new.
You're not getting millions in funding
no.
from the federal government.
We are just
So there's-
there presenting a product. We sell advertisement. They sell advertisement. The same thing. Just they're much bigger, or CTV, or insert whatever network you want to do. We're the same thing, but just on a much smaller scale. Simply, and I'm just guessing here. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm connecting dots for what little information I have. It seems to me based on a name. I could be wrong.
It
until
could
I
be,
get-
but look, I'll give you another example. That, like when you go for merchant accounts, for instance, when this was before, it's easier now because there's Strike available on these different ones. Not Strike, Stripe. Thank you. But before, and still, you pay different rates if you don't have an office, if you have no physical presence, right? And then before it was even worse. If you were just an online merchant to get merchant accounts with stuff, and they were regularly getting shut down, and they were freezing your funds. And in a previous business I was involved with, there was a 25% holdback, and it was rolling for, I forget, it was like somewhere between 3 and 6 months. The 25% holdback on everything too, because you didn't have a physical presence. So in their risk profile, you just don't know. They're like, oh, these guys are simply a podcast. We need something with an office and this and that. You're like, who knows?
I don't know, but
I just mean we don't know it's the name.
I
Right?
could
That's what
say
I'm saying.
this. We went to a chartered bank. Not going to say who.
Just say it.
No, I will refuse to call them out. But when we talked to them, informally, they said it was because of the name. And they told us, don't bother going to any of the
So
other
here's
chartered
what
You
to
said
do the
that
next time. Here's what, just start.
Punch them.
Start a new corp. Start an Ontario numbered corp, like 1234 Ontario Inc. And then you can file with a lawyer an operating as document. So your legal name with the bank is 1234 Ontario Inc. Then with your lawyer, you go to the lawyer and you file a piece of paper that says 1234 Ontario Inc. is also operating as the Canadian Bitcoiners.
Is there a
2
world-
months later,
is
you
there a-
give that to the bank. So the legal name at the bank is your 1234 Ontario Inc. It might have less flags for you. But then if anyone cuts you a check to the Canadian Bitcoiners, they're still allowed because
Why?
you filed these piece of paper.
Why even do that?
No, well, I'm
Don't
just
even
saying.
I
that's
can't
it.
believe that.
Yeah.
I can't believe that the risk management regime in the Big Five allows for Ontario 12345 to present less risk than Canadian Bitcoiners podcast.
And I'm going to go
What are,
on.
we
An
talk-
anonymous-
what are we talking about here?
So
What are
Duca
we
Bank
talking about?
or Duca Credit
Totally,
Services.
totally. I agree with you 100%.
If you look at Duca's Twitter feed, there was just a tweet last week or 2 weeks ago. They talked about that they want to give out students credit cards so they could help build their credit score.
Very nice of them.
Yeah.
So I'm with that.
Very
I mean,
fun.
you have to start
These
from
are
somewhere.
obviously good-hearted people.
But you have to start from somewhere. So I'm with that. But now my credit score is really good. And I want to build our credit score for our business. CRA stipulates you have to separate personal
Yeah.
from bank records. We are prevented from doing so. Now we are going to have to put everything into a personal account.
Into Rockstar Real Estate.
Into Rockstar.
And have
So it's going to be now
transferred over.
more
Drag
difficult.
our name. We already have a crazy name with Rockstar Real Estate. We don't need any more problems. With
Now
you
it's
guys.
going to be more difficult for us to manage our business and to separate our business from personal. If CRA comes knocking, it's going to be hard for us to determine, here it is, we'll have to do our best. And it's simply because of a name. Now, if our name was something else,
Are you trying to make the argument that you think CRA cares?
I think they might. I don't want them coming knocking on.
That's very nice of you
Very
to think that.
very
Yeah,
cavalier.
I don't want to come knocking on our door. But if they did, up until now, it was very easy, very transparent.
if they weren't going to before, now they're going to.
And I welcome that because our records are still
We
flawless.
said that, and our accountant said the same thing, that like you gotta have tight records, because with that, with the B word in your name, you're inviting action, right? So
Are you
And
guys?
Len's not backing
are you
down.
go-
We know that.
Are you guys seeing any developments in Canada where we get something closer to what Strike is doing in the rest of the world, like any other banking
Yeah.
type services? What's out there?
I'm not telling you on the air, but I'll tell you after.
Okay, so there is. Can you describe what kinds of services, like where Canadians will be able to move?
You're gonna get savings accounts available to you I would guess within the next 12 months. Yeah.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So,
So
the question is like, what other part of the bank services suite do you require? That this can give you. For me, nothing except the mortgage. I could get a mortgage through Ledin, I guess. If I want to use my Bitcoin as collateral. I don't particularly want to do that, but I mean, there's people who will want to do that. And
So
probably
describe the
still will.
savings account you're talking about. Like, how would I use that?
It's going to be an interest-bearing savings account for CAD. Yeah.
And it's based on. It's not with one of the big Canadian banks.
No,
So how is it? It's just another bank then. What makes that different?
that's a great question. Where's the differentiator, right? We're talking about knocking at the foundations of the traditional system, and here we are every day becoming, what's that old saying? You
Yeah.
live long enough to see yourself become a villain.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't know. It's all this stuff. I think at the end of the day, okay, and this will get me in trouble with some Bitcoiners. At the end of the day, I'm not against the suite of services banks provide. I'm not against interest-bearing stuff. I'm not against any of that. What I'm against is the way these guys conduct business, because they're able to do so in a monopolistic environment. And the Canadian bank's a great example of that. Duopoly, of course, but it's sanctioned by government. There's no competition. There's never going to be a new entrant. It's impossible for them to fail. It doesn't matter what they do with your money. They can lose a ton. It doesn't matter. They can gain a ton. It doesn't matter. They pay all their executives with all your cash. Your tax money goes to preventing them from falling apart, and it just is never going to stop. I will put my money anywhere except the chartered bank if I get a chance. That's why I was so pumped about Duca, because I was like, you know what, we're really doing the best we can, given that we have to operate in CAD. We're not going to one of the big five charters, although we did try, as you mentioned. But like, that is not a bad situation for guys like us, guys like you, guys like whoever. But now, I'm looking at some of these companies in the Canadian Bitcoin space, and certainly in the States, right? Strike obviously doing this as well. They're trying to mimic and mirror some of the suite of services that banks offer, because that's what people need. Like, whether you like it or not, people need that. There's no world, at least not right now, where Bitcoin is taking over for the US dollar in terms of day-to-day operations, in terms of mortgages, paying for university, paying for cars, paying for these sorts of things, your bills, your hydro, all that stuff. Until that happens, let's work on things like the UI, the user experience, ease of transfer, all that kind of stuff, right? Make it easy for everyone who's not willing to jump in yet, so that when everyone's here, we got that down, and then we'll work on some other stuff. But I'm personally not against the banks, or not against some of these services mirroring the suite of services offered by banks. I think they have to at some point to grow. I see there's some disagreement brewing over here besides.
No, I'm just trying to process that.
There's a big frown on your face when you're thinking.
I'm trying to process. I mean, I have nothing against it or nothing for it. It just seems like it's a business opportunity.
Yeah, sure.
And all the more power to you if you.
No, I'm just straight up against it. I just think the banks here have just this monopoly where they get to profit, and we all get to cheer that Canada has a very stable banking system. And it really listen. When our father was sending $500 to our aunt who had nothing in Croatia, $50 Western Union fee or $50 whatever bank wire fee. Then the guys there in Croatia took $100 illegally from her. So she got our dad first had to work and save up $500. Then our aunt
He had to pay
Croatia,
tax, so he actually had to work for more money than that.
So then, and then he pays $50 to the bank because there's no other way to get there. Then the guys illegally just, when they cash out $450, they take $100. She sees them going and having lunch and spending the money. And this happened for years and years and years. So she would get that's $350 out of the $500 that our dad earned. And I just feel that to me is a summary of the entire banking system. That's everything. We all go and take a mortgage. We may, and we kind of applaud, we have great Canadian banks, but the ability for the banks to give out mortgages in a system where they create money out of thin air makes your property price $1 million.
It's brutal.
I don't, and this is where, when I have some Keynesian economists, defend the system, I feel like they're defending robbery from my fellow person in the world, because they can't save. Why does Len have to work another however many years until you retire to feel like you're financially secure? Like, that's kind of bullshit.
How about this?
Well, maybe Len had a bad gambling or other.
No, but
habit
but
that we
ultimately,
don't know.
ultimately that's what these economists will tell you. Well, Len, you didn't do the right things, and Len, you shouldn't save money.
You're making me feel bad, by the way.
You shouldn't.
I'm gonna
Sorry,
walk
Joey.
away.
You shouldn't save money. You should put your money to work. But to me, capitalism is the formation of capital.
Yeah.
What you do is you save money, and you form capital. It makes you think long term, and then you take a risk with that capital. And if interest rates are true and not manipulated, let's say the true rate of interest right now should be like 8% out there. Well, then me as a capitalist, I have to try to put my savings to work to earn more than 8%. What that does in a society is it makes me do something good and great, because I know to earn more than 8%, I better offer Len and Joey something amazing.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm not going to get more than 8% back on my money. So it's not a negative that rates are high. It's a positive that rates are high, because it makes me, the capitalist, try to offer better clothing, better housing, better anything to you to get a better return. And for that reason, I don't hoard my Bitcoin or my good savings dollars.
Yeah.
I put it to productive good use. Whereas a shit system makes me go into a defensive mode and buy property. Screw Joey, because we're buying properties as investment because we're a little bit of ahead of him in the game, and it fucks up
Longer
everything.
in the tooth.
Longer in the
Fucks
tooth.
up everything.
Let's go with that.
So two things, right? One, you're in an environment now where capitalism is the, really the C word that no one wants to hear. And the other one, people are more willing to say out loud and, at dinner parties. The other thing I would say is we become a country that cheers for stability. Stability in economies, stability in banking, stability in our shit and crumbling healthcare system. Stability is not good for anybody. You need disruption to grow. There's pain that comes with that, but the pain of kicking this thing down the road longer and longer and longer, you're just going to amplify the destruction at the end of the line. And that's what you're seeing. That's what you're seeing, right? And you guys have kids. Like, it's for I think about even someone my age. There's no way that entitlements are going to be there for me the way they're being sold to me now, right? My pension is allegedly among the strongest available to Canadians. I don't fucking buy that for a second. I look at the way that we conduct business. I look at our investment strategy. Look over at QPDC, right, in Quebec. See what they did with their pension?
Yeah.
200 million write-off on
I heard
Celsius.
that was a good move.
Yeah, and what did they blame it on? Market conditions. We were just too early. You weren't too early. You're fucking stupid.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
You didn't do any
Market
due diligence.
conditions.
All you had to go on, you could have gone on Twitter for an hour and Google and looked up Celsius in your search bar and figured out this was a bad idea. Instead, what you guys did was broke bread, had a glass of wine, went to dinner parties, probably got wine and dined by the Celsius team, and gave them 200 mil. No one's getting that 200 mil now. This is I think the bigger problem for Canadian institutions, whether it's banks, pensions, whatever, all these guys are peacetime monoliths. I've said that a million times. They cannot succeed in an environment where everything is not going their way. And as soon as there's push coming to shove for these guys, you see what happens. COVID, hospitals are full. They're at capacity. What the fuck? What do you mean they're at capacity? How much of your paycheck goes to healthcare? Okay, I'm driving here on the way here. It feels like I'm driving down like some kind of sub-Saharan African, shantytown road.
Yeah.
The fucking highway's a disaster. Oh no, you can drive on a clean highway, but you got to pay extra for that. Okay, well, I'm already paying you for roads. Okay, well, what about education in the States, right? Great example, and this is going to happen in Canada too, these stupid debt jubilees. Okay, well, at least your education's free. Have you seen the teachers these days? You guys have kids that just went through elementary school. How are parent-teacher interviews? You go in there, what do you see? Overweight teachers, people who can't spell, can't speak, can't do anything competently. It's a joke. The education system is failing if it hasn't failed already. You look all around at the things you're allegedly paying for, quality services with your tax. What do you see? You see any quality? I would be ashamed to offer these things if it was under my umbrella. But here's my government and my peers, and certainly you guys probably have the same thing, and maybe not in your friend circle, but people you talk to once a year or something like that. Oh, we had to do this because healthcare was, we need healthcare. Yeah.
We hear that all the time.
And people are complaining that Ford wants to add a tier of healthcare for people who, listen, if you don't add that tier, we talked about this on Twitter the other day. Population growth and all this stuff is going the wrong direction. We got a problem. There's going to be too many people for the hospitals we have now. When was the last time the GTA?
Well, there's already like
We
the-
clearly
with,
have
without,
I went by the Toronto population sign. It's like 3.7 million. When the fuck did that happen?
Wow, is that what it
When
says?
was
I
the
don't
last-
even know.
When was the last time they put up a hospital in the GTA?
Several.
Yeah.
When was the last time they put
One
one
in
up?
Vaughan.
They-
There's one in Vaughan.
Massive one in Brampton.
When did they build a new hospital?
Within the last few years in Brampton.
Come on,
Yes.
a big
But
hospital.
to
Yes,
Joey's
yes.
point,
Oakville's
we
one was
clearly
built.
have a
They
lack
closed
of
down the old
beds.
one.
We clearly have a lack of beds. To Joey's
yes.
point.
We're,
And
we're
the-
losing the battle with demographics in that regard, and that's not the only regard in which we are losing that battle. And demographics are your destiny, man. That's a touchy thing to say. I don't fucking know why, but
Well, I saw a stat the other day just on the hospitals. The Halton ones, this was like 1 or 2 days ago. The Halton ones were at 104 capacity. They've gone down now to 100% capacity, and it's got nothing to do with in total. It was like 25 people with COVID, but most of them were in there for another reason. I
Sure,
think it was
so
7
it's
people that
normal.
were
It's
actually
normal capacity.
Yeah, like it's full and overflowing, and it's just there's nothing else going on, and that's.
I wonder
why-
how many beds we've added since COVID.
Yeah, well, you don't have to wonder. Zero.
remember we built those like
Can you
parking
imagine
lot
it's down?
hospitals?
Can you imagine it's actually negative?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, then how much money did we spend on those temporary hospitals? No, like
It was
those
a photo op.
that
It
we
was a
never
photo
needed.
op.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? What else is on the sheet? I don't want to talk about hospitals.
So,
I hate it so much.
yeah. What were you going to say?
ETH's the next one.
Oh, no,
That'll
we
just
kind
get
of
them all
talked
worked
about
up.
it. I think we know their view. I was just curious on what you guys are
Lightning
saying
is
on
interesting.
on the ETH merge that's coming up. And not the technical part of it, just, yeah, do you think it kind of goes through smoothly?
It has to.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess
it's
it
gonna-
will.
it's
They've
gonna go-
tested this thing,
It's going to go
right?
through. The question is, after that, what's the next sort of bullish mover for the Ethereum token?
Yeah, did you see that Checkmate guy's video where
Yes.
he talks about how Lido and Coinbase, basically 3 or 4 exchanges control enough of the validators in a proof of stake system where they kind of control the
I
system.
haven't seen the video, but I do know.
He broke it out really nicely.
Yeah,
Len, what's your thoughts?
I just want to go back. You both think, and all three, I don't want to exclude you, the merge is going to go well?
I think it's going to
I guess
go.
it'll
I just
technically
think it's going
work.
to go. I don't know if it's going to go well, but they're going to. I mean, they're. in a corner.
But then
They
you
can't
now
push
have a
it back.
centralized system where it seems like 4 exchanges have enough validators to have a majority vote in the direction of this thing.
There's going to be, once they do the merge, there's going to be some downtime. There's no doubt about it. You can't have the merge and have it continuously up. You're merging 2 different chains together. That's the merge.
So downtime, and then
I don't know how this is going to work technically.
if you've staked your ETH after the merge, you still can't get it out, right? It's
The code
another
hasn't
year.
been put in to remove the.
Doesn't exist.
Correct. They still have to put that, but that's a totally different.
And they said they're putting a queue list together. Okay, Swami,
Okay.
Swami,
So
what's
what's
your
the
prediction then for the merge?
I think there's going to be some downtime, and it's going to be significant downtime. It's
Really?
not going to.
That's
be
that's what I say to my wife after a night of drinking, and when she wants me to do housework the next day. I
gonna
think
be
there's going to be some
significant.
downtime, and there's going to be significant.
It's going to be
downtime.
significant.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to go as smooth because you're merging 2 different blockchains, and I know they're doing this on a test net and whatever testing grounds they're doing on it, but still, this is still the 2 main chains that they have currently.
Okay, so let's say there's downtime, it comes back up, and it's working like, I guess, what's the selling feature for Ethereum right now that you can just do some shit on it? Like, I
Right
don't
now
really-
or
yeah.
in a month from now?
A month from now, after it goes proof of stake.
It's just a lot
It's
cheaper.
environmentally friendly.
That'll be among them for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't have to invest as much money in computing power to mine a block. Right now, you'd have to use GPUs. That's the best way to mine Ethereum, and it costs some energy, not as much as Bitcoin, but that's the way.
And you can run smart contracts on it.
And you can run, but so going forward, when it's proof of stakes, you eliminate the whole mining process. It's basically done by pools, of whoever has the most, has the highest chance of running the next or mining the next block.
And so for anyone listening who hasn't followed this, from my understanding, which is limited, if you stake your ETH in one of these greater pools like Lido, or I guess Coinbase does some staking and
They
stuff,
recently
there's 3 or 4 of these guys that have taken enough small retail ETH and staked it, where together these guys have enough voting power to actually make an impact or some decision on the overall blockchain network that is Ethereum.
That's how
Someone listening to this is going to just think I bastardized.
I would love
that
to know if
explanation.
ShakePay is among potential validators. I don't know if they are or not, but they must have a boatload of that.
No, there's no. I have no way to say that they would. I mean, I assume they don't have it. The reason why is because they would have staked ETH, and they're not in the process.
They may not have it on their platform, but I think it's
But
it's hard to say.
But now
whether or
we've
not they're doing
recreated
it.
a system, just from my understanding, and I'd love to be able to go really deep on this, but I can't. But we've now recreated a system where there's people essentially in charge that can control things,
Yeah.
which is what we're just trying to get away from.
Yeah, that I agree. As much as I'll try to play devil's advocate a little bit sometimes, with different that one I don't fully get.
For a monetary asset, it's not what I want.
yeah,
For a tech platform, maybe sure, but for
but you're just recreating someone that can control the rules of the money. Like it just doesn't really that one. I don't. I must be missing something. I've looked for to try to understand why that's a good thing. I haven't figured that. I haven't been able to figure that one out.
It's not. I mean, look, much the same way as we talked earlier about sort of the stability angle and people protecting what they think is, good for them. You can't convince me that if you look across the top, 100 ETH holders, for example, you're not going to see all the exchanges, some of the biggest pre-mine guys, some of the guys who've been around since 2015, 16, 17. Of course they want this because it's a license to print cash. The real question I have is, like, with all this stuff going on, where is the SEC talking about this sort of, big change in what they're calling a kind of troubling ecosystem, the same way they talk about Bitcoin, I guess. But where are these guys in all this? They have no comment on this. They're not interested in talking about the direction this is going. They're not interested in finding out that, there's basically a new quote unquote monetary monopoly forming at the top of this proof of stake change. It's just outside their wheelhouse. Instead, they're going after Tornado Cash. Like, that's really where they're.
It's weird, right? Does it make you think like J.P. Morgan and some of these bigger banks are involved?
They were
100%.
I don't know the deal. So this could be, let's make an ecosystem that we control and we play in and we can pull the strings.
So do some research and you'll see that they were there to help at the onset of the pre-mine stage.
Yeah.
J.P. Morgan was at that stage.
They've been around that stuff, man.
So let's just get back to what this is. You were talking about this as just more of a fiat type system, and you're 100% correct, because it's the people that are closest to the money printer are going to have the most to benefit, and this is another system of that. There was 70% pre-mine when ETH was first developed. So the developers, they mined it, sold it themselves and a few other people, but that was 70% of the overall float was within them and their friends.
Right.
And in order to stake ETH and staking ETH and mining ETH and getting benefits from that, whoever has the most staked benefits the most. Well, now the people that were there at the beginning got free ETH or very, very cheap ETH. They're gonna benefit from this proof of stake system, where they could now benefit from the mining of the proof of stake because they have the most that they could stake on there. Doesn't make sense. It's very fiat-like.
It makes sense if you're one of those people.
It does.
Makes sense if you're controlling it. Yeah,
It does.
If you listen,
but they're gonna have a great story because the ESG stuff, the environment friendly
it's
stuff, is just
unbelievable,
gonna
man.
smash Bitcoin.
And you know how that's gonna look.
but listening to you talk, if you look at it as a piece of software,
I thought you were saying piece of shit.
yeah.
Proof of stakes.
But if you look at it as a piece of software, then that's no different than people that program software. They were the ones that stuck with it, put it in place, and they had.
Yeah, but we're talking about a monetary
They earned
asset.
the most.
Yeah.
But it's a monetary asset only because people are trading it for a dollar value.
This isn't
That's
Microsoft.
dollar value on
Yeah,
it.
I think that's right.
This isn't Microsoft Windows we're talking
No,
about.
no, I understand.
No, but the point is that, like, if you view it this way, I kind of sympathize with this view, and I think I don't
Well, I'm
think
just
you're the only
trying to
person-
understand the opposite
I don't.
point.
I don't think you're the only person that has this. I've thought about this too, and I think you're right. The problem is in the framing that these guys will give you, right? They'll get on stage in a unicorn onesie and tell you that this is the future of the monetary system. Which, okay, if it is, we can't have proof of stake.
Yeah.
If you want to do contracting,
Yeah, they're selling it as money.
Yeah, if you want to do other stuff on this, fuck, I don't care what you do. Go for it.
Agreed.
To each their own. But if you're going to try and tell me that this is what I got to use going forward as money or savings,
That I agree with. I agree with that. I'm just trying to look at the other side of it, and yeah,
The other side I agree with as well. But don't tell me this is money.
yeah.
Yeah.
When the monetary
I get it.
system can change.
Yeah, I don't want the money controlled by the unicorn onesies.
yeah. So we can't have that.
Yeah.
There can't be unicorn onesies at the top of the monetary system.
Sombreros are okay, but
Sombreros means a good night of drinking. That's
Yeah.
okay. You know what I mean?
Why did you guys start this Canadian Bitcoiners podcast? What was the impetus for that? I don't know. I can't remember if I've asked you that. Like, why
Because
did
my wife was starting.
I know you were talking. So yeah.
My wife was starting to hear me talk about it. I had
Like
no- I
everybody's
had
same
no
story.
choice,
Everyone's
yeah.
same story. But I know that you guys were kind of colleagues or our colleagues. You were talking about it, but then, like, what was beneath that? Like, why did it grasp you the way it did?
Bitcoin or the podcast?
Bitcoin, and then so much so that you turned it into a podcast.
Do you want to go first?
Because it sounds like you have slightly different angles in the way you approach it.
I'll say about the Bitcoin, I love for the same reasons you guys love it. It makes sense. It's, quote unquote, beyond government control, things like this. I think that's pretty well known for a lot of Bitcoiners. the podcast, to be honest with you, was a passion project. I never expected it to get to where it is now. The people
It's a doubter.
Cool.
yeah, the people we've met, like you guys, among others, like a lot of people I would consider friends now. And the thing about the growth of the show and all that is once you start growing, all you see is opportunity after opportunity. Well, let's talk to this guy. Let's do this show. Let's do that. Let's do this. We just started the CBP media thing because this guy doesn't have he thinks I have all kinds of free time.
You will.
It's unbelievable. So today for the interview, for example, okay, one of us is here half an hour early. The other guy is rolling in right as the interview scheduled to start. So you can guess who's actually fucking working, who's still got a day job, and it ain't him. Okay, so
Hey, I'm off today.
so
I'm off.
anyway, so the thing about the podcast, and you guys know this too. Look at your guest list, right? As soon as you hit one guest that you've always wanted to talk to, if you're going through a lull or you feel like the passion is waning, fuck, that one good conversation, you're right back into it. You're 2 feet again. You're like, let's start sending out emails, send out DMs. We got to call this guy, talk to this guy, whatever. Let's get these guys on. Let's do another show. Let's do the economic update, whatever, right? The same thing goes for I think a lot of different projects. But with the podcast, man, the engagement on Twitter, you meet all these people who care what you have to say. They ask you for things, and then in exchange, they pay you with their time. What a feeling. Are you kidding? Once you start hearing that, and see the live chat every week go from, when we started streaming it, 2 people, one of them was Len's wife, 2 people.
She's a fan.
My wife's never been in the chat. 2 people, 3 people, then it's 10, then it's 20, 30, 40,
Awesome.
50.
Awesome.
And then before you know it, you got a partner, ShakePay's your partner and Ledin's your partner, and you're talking with those guys and they got ideas and you got ideas. Everything rolls downhill. And I'm sure you guys can appreciate this as well. One of the things that I found out, maybe 7-8 years ago was you got to get wins every day. If you're not getting wins every day, you're gonna start going the wrong direction. And so whether that win is hitting the gym early, new PR, or it's doing something at work, or doing an episode, or whatever, you got to get that win every day. And before you know it, it's been almost 2 years now. I can't think of a 2-year period where I've been busier than I've been. Certainly in the last 6 months, busier than I've ever been. But fuck, it feels good to wake up every day. You ready to go, man? It's not, I don't like talking to Len. I messaged him about the show because I care about the show. Right?
He despises talking to me.
Yeah. So, well, I
I don't blame you. I despise talking myself too.
But don't you think?
But it was better than the wall with your wife not listening. It was either
That's
the
right,
wall
yeah.
or Len.
She leaves. The dog's been leaving recently too.
Shit, Len's the only person around to talk to.
But
The last person standing.
Don't you find that though? You are putting out so much stuff on the channel all the time. The video, the shorts, all that stuff. Your YouTube has been your baby. And
Yeah,
the
it's
thing
been
is-
busy.
and it's been growing. And I think about all the time you put into it. It's amazing. I think about some of the stuff that we've been able to do together as a result of the show. Hang out with these guys a couple of times, right? I did score a free cup of coffee today, which is
Jerk.
nice. Yeah. We did.
I made a note.
Hey, we did the ShakePay thing, right? That ShakePay thing was fucking
Yeah,
fun,
yeah.
man. You meet a lot of nice guys there. Everyone there is of the same mind, and it strengthens your resolve, man. Okay, this is a mission from God, as a great philosopher once said. You know what I mean?
It's easier with 2 people as well. You would know that.
100%,
Totally.
100%.
Right? You can feed off each other's
Yeah,
energies.
if one's low that day and someone's feeling good, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It definitely helps, 100%.
For sure. And so that stuff matters. And that's what really grabbed me about the podcast. It would have been great if you and me did it and made, a couple $100 a month. Fantastic. We got a few good fans and we meet some people once in a while. Awesome. But what it's turned into is still to me like extremely, extremely humbling. I don't know. I'm sure you feel the same
And we
way.
have a surprise for you.
Oh,
here we
man.
go.
Satoshi Nakamoto has called us.
Oh, here we
and
go.
he's coming on your podcast.
We're going to break his identity. I love it.
We wanted to keep that a secret.
I
but
can't
you know what?
believe
We're
it.
just putting
I
that
can't
out there
believe
right
it.
now.
Big old sad.
Huge news. Huge news.
I like that.
Yeah, Joey, that's super cool to hear, man. That's really cool. That is really cool. What you
Man,
do
it's
down there.
and like you guys.
Who do you guys want on the podcast? Who would be the person to get at this point?
It's got to be Sailor, right?
Sailor would be great.
We're only
you
one-
guys have to get Sailor hasn't done their podcast yet.
I think
This
we're
needs to happen.
I think we're close, man. I think
Yeah.
we're closer than we were 2 months ago for sure. And wait till you see who we got lined up for that Bear Cave thing, because I'll tell you,
Cool.
First 2 were heavy hitters, but I got one more heavy hitter in the tank for sure. And then, like I was saying to you before the show, Mike Green offered to make another introduction for me. That's going to be dope. Those traditional finance guys, they got networks on networks on networks of people that they've known for 30, 40
Sure.
years, right, in the space. And those are the guys I want to talk to as well. I mean, who do you guys want on? Like traditional finance wise? You guys had Lynn Alden. She doesn't return my calls.
Lynn Alden was
So,
amazing.
yeah.
Our YouTube views will get like between 30 and 48 views. Lynn Alden came on. We got 65,000, or I think it's over 70,000 views or
Crazy.
something.
I mean, ours
and some
hits-
people were in the comments were like, Lynn Alden's amazing. And the guy was kind of okay. the guy asking questions was okay, but Lynn was like, and you know, YouTube
There were other
comments
ones
are
were like,
deadly.
how did these guys get Lynn
yeah,
Alden?
yeah. How did this?
That was my
channel-
comment. Sorry.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
How did this channel get?
Yeah, what the heck is going on?
but YouTube comments can be deadly. People just ripping you. But Lynn Alden got so much love. Like we got so many comments, and it was all Lynn Alden's the best,
Yeah.
and Lynn Alden is amazing. You're right, she's amazing. I really don't have any big names that we're really kind of after. It's more interesting people. So the reason that it's exciting for us to have you guys here is because you guys have opinions and will speak your mind and speak freely. It's more of those people. It's not really like a kind of like a financial status person.
You
it would
guys,
be
your show had that kid on the other day, the shoe,
Fayak.
shoe kid.
yeah.
Like that's a good story.
Yeah, FIAC. And that's the kind of thing we like to do.
Yeah.
The local investor, and it's only going to be applicable.
Someone at CBC listened to that and they reached out
They
to us
called,
to try to get his contact
Wow.
information.
Yeah, they're going to bring him on the morning show.
Come
Wow.
on.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's
It's a good because you're right because it's a good story,
It's
right?
a great
so
story.
It's a good story. Yeah.
And he's what, 20? He just turned 20
20
or something like that?
Yeah, and I
when
like
they
those.
call us, they just give only Joy's information. Now.
Yeah,
I don't want to.
If I was here, I wouldn't have taken the CBC call. Someone else did. I would just CBC. Okay, hung
We
up.
we got a couple emails from CBC. We ignore them.
Yeah, and I would have done the same thing.
I'm not talking to CBC.
Not just them, but also others too.
Yeah.
So we're not just single.
Actually,
What is the point of talking
we
to
do
these
get a
guys?
few. Actually, I just got one yesterday, and there's no point.
Yeah.
I have a filter set up. It just
Yeah.
goes into the
Len,
trash.
Len, what about you? The podcast. What is it? What itch is it scratching for you?
It's just a void for me right now because he could see how much time it's been invested, but it's taken a lot of time away from other things that I love to do. This past year, I've played the least amount of tennis and golf than I have done in
Len golfs every Friday, by the way. Sometimes
Yeah.
36.
Normally, but-
sometimes 36.
Oh,
Yes, yeah, but there have been
Sometimes 36.
yeah, we got good
Man,
deals.
if I make
Oh, that's
if I make it through 9,
12. I can get to 12.
yeah, 12 I can usually get. If I make it through 9 happy, I'm,
Yeah.
I'm good. But
Yeah.
12, even if I'm happy at 9, I break down.
Are
at
you
12.
checked out mentally at that point?
Yeah.
No, I through 9. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? This is kind of fun. Like, I should do this more often. And I get to 12. I'm like, give me the
Wasting my
I just want to
time.
go
What am I
home.
doing? I
So-
could-
So I found a way to make it all worthwhile if you go looking for balls. And it's a little game you could do through the whole round.
look.
And I love finding balls. I
Not
prefer finding balls more than actually golfing these days.
When
I love it.
if I hit it off the fairway, I kind of glance in the area. I take the card over, look around once. I come right back, drop a ball. I could care less. I'm like, whatever.
I love finding them, and and I give them away as soon as I get them. But that's a little thing that keeps me motivated to play. Just I want to find more balls, and if I find the color ones, I keep them for my daughter.
Do you think you've probably learned more about like the technical side of the podcast than you thought you were going to learn doing this show, for sure?
It was inevitable that I was going to learn this, though.
Yeah.
Like it's not like I was.
We weren't on YouTube when we first started. It was inevitable.
That was inevitable. You may not have thought so, but it was.
Sure. Yeah. Here we go.
It was going to happen.
I commend you guys. Listen, I want to ask you this, but because we'll start to wrap up in a second here. There's this debt spiral thing going on, right? At 3.2% interest. I think Greg Foss was breaking it out that it'll be like, or James Lavish was breaking it out that it's going to be about $1 trillion to carry $30 trillion worth of debt. It'll be $1 trillion in payments. They're already running massive deficits. Canada does similar stuff. I got a climate change check. What did I get? I got a climate action check.
the climate action
it's
refund
called.
or whatever.
Yeah, I came home from vacation and there was this check.
All in a Bitcoin, baby.
Yeah, these are great Bitcoin purchases. And where do you think we're headed over the next 5-6 years, just in Canada or globally with the economy? You guys track this stuff. What do you think happens?
Whatever you've seen in the past little while, just accelerate it for the next. There's going to be no change. You think they're going to be paying off the debt? Hell no. They're going to be tacking on to the debt more than anything.
So does the Canadian listening to this, if they don't understand Bitcoin yet, they should just be aware that their money is going to be worth less and less over the next 5 years? Things like energy and houses just get more and more expensive. I know we're in a bit of a housing correction, but in the longer term, does shit just get more expensive in their lives?
Name a period of time it hasn't.
Not since 71, right?
Right. And so it's all within our lifetime. So forget about thinking that
Not
it's not
mine.
going
Not mine. Only you guys.
Mm-hmm. He's a young pup.
to. No,
I'm long in the tooth.
We've
long
all
in
lived
the
it. But what I'm trying to get at it's always going to go up, and there's no precedence to show that it won't.
So it's just
To be fair,
Regards-
we got it because people will listen to that and be like, guys, doesn't always go up. Things are coming down right now. Look at real estate. But you know, and you guys did say, you know, longer term. You did say that, but to be fair, I just want to clarify that
Sure.
is longer. Like the trend line is up, and things go up and down along
like a
along
yo-yo.
an increasing trend line.
Yeah, it's like
You-
a
you know what I
yo-yo
mean? So-
walking
so you're right.
upstairs.
But I just mean the reason I'm just stating that is because I can't tell you how many people will be like, oh well, it just goes up.
and
I'm
you're-
like, no,
you're bang
that's
on.
not what happens.
If you look at it over a longer period of
Yeah,
time, 10
yeah.
years, 15
Yeah,
20
it's
years.
the trend line of it
Yeah.
constantly goes up, and then it kind of comes up and down just along that trend line, and eventually kind of keeps moving.
Look at cell phones. And cell phones, smartphones have been around since what, 2008-ish, give or take. I can't remember when the iPhone first came out. But the price of the phones, they haven't really come down over time. Every year.
if you get an Apple one, they've only gone up.
So, but these
Apple
are
keeps
things.
pushing the limits,
and they hold their value too.
Yep.
But these are things that theoretically should go down over time through economy of scale, through
Sure.
learning, R&D. Why isn't the price of this going down year over year? But they should. This is a true indication of what's going on in the world and in the economy. If you look at your phone, every year it's more expensive. Same with cars. Cars is another thing. Man, used cars are so expensive. Why? Sure, there's a shortage of chips and causing some issues with creation of new cars. But still, cars. This is a consumable.
So-
It shouldn't be going down. It shouldn't be going up on price.
So what's it mean for the next 5 years?
It's going to continually go up.
You think it's just going to continue?
Yeah, maybe not the same pace, but it's not going to go
Do
down.
we see more social unrest?
If it goes down, look. If things go down, there's a far bigger problem in place.
That's
and
right.
everyone has to worry about that versus the price of things going down, right? Because then the government, then with the amount of debt in the system, if all the prices of everything comes down, deflation starts really taking hold. Then there's like real
So
issues going on.
We've gotten into this mindset that inflation is good. And this is something that's ingrained in us. It's not. It's a fiat way of thinking that there's got to be an expansion of credit and price of goods have to go up. And this is the way things operate. Well, no. It's the way things operate because it's shoved down our throat.
Well, in this system,
Yes.
in the system as it is today,
Right.
for it to operate, it kind of does. In a proper based system, it wouldn't have to. Yeah.
So Len, what kind of social unrest is ahead? Is it voting? Like we just get a bigger divide between political parties? Is it that, or does it
much
get a
bigger?
little more
How
aggressive?
much bigger can it get? Like it's at the
It's
moment,
pretty big right now.
It's a
Yeah.
chasm, right? Like you're a commie on one side or a Nazi on the other, and there's almost no nuance, no in between, right? There's the common ground is completely eroded between the two political parties.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say the two political parties because here obviously we're three parties.
No. We're only two parties have governed. since-
Fair. I hear what you're saying. In terms of like social unrest,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much are you expecting? Like if you think about what you've seen in the last, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years, as far as like the split in votes, for example, in the States, what you're seeing is basically 50-50 all the way down the line. You can talk about who won the popular vote or whatever, but the fact of the matter is you've had one party then the other, which used to be the sort of intended and expected consequence of, you know, good governance and that natural pendulum swinging back and forth. But now I think that the stakes socially are so high that people really attach themselves to these things in a way they hadn't before. They won't hire people of certain political orientations. They won't be friends with people of certain political orientations. They won't marry people of certain political orientations. And so what you get is further division, right? Institutional division is what you're starting to see. And it's everywhere, right? Like I don't have any friends really. I have like almost no liberal friends, like none. My wife is as far left as I've ever as I encounter on a day-to-day basis, and she's probably center right. And I think a lot of people are in that boat these days because, you know, there's something to be said about that whole birds of a feather thing. You're not going to be around people who have a different view than you when it seems to us that the obvious right answer is right here, but they don't see it. Like, why would I waste my time? Maybe that's a problem with us. I don't know. But clearly what you're seeing is this divide deepening by the generation, right?
And they're doing that more and more, as you said, by the generation. Maybe 15, 20 years ago, we had much more centrist way of thinking. And in fact, the government...
Do you think?
Yes. I don't want to get into specifics in case we get to this channel banned or whatever, but they were... It seemed like there was a drive to get toward the center from a lot of different parties. Now it's the opposite. They're trying to go as far away from the center, and they're going to try to fight for that, you know, the 15, 20% in the middle that are undecided, and that's going to ultimately decide who's going to win an election.
I only know my adult life, and for sure in my adult life, yeah, it's gone the other way.
It's
Yeah.
the past 20 years.
Yeah, the center is vacated for sure.
But in the 80s, it went more opposite.
Yeah.
The 90s and 2000, it went more centralist, and then it went the other way since then.
I think in Canada specifically, I think everything shifted left. I think, and maybe a new leader in the Conservative Party will change that. But I don't think the right went right. I think the left went further left. So I view the Liberal Party as what the NDP used to be, like how you were talking a while ago. And I look at the Conservative Party under previous leaders who have lost as pretty much almost what the Liberal Party was in the past. Like it's closer to the Liberal Party it was in the past than going further right.
Yeah, so they're like red Tories, you'd call them. And I could see, but still they have a lot of traditional.
They do, but they didn't shift that way.
No,
the
left has
shifted over. The right's just been, the actual right's just kind of disappeared in the country. Like a true conservative party's kind of disappeared. It might come back under a different leader or something. I don't know.
We'll see. The pendulum swings, right? Let's find out.
But when you were talking about how big the divide is, and I think you said it the last few years, I just started laughing because I never thought about this. Just think of how many divorces the Trump presidency caused.
Oh, geez.
Just think about that.
I own a MAGA hat and I wore it around my house for like 4 days after he won. And like, I don't really care about Trump, the man. It's just funny to watch Hillary Clinton lose. Like
totally.
And like, I agree with that. My wife hated it. And my friends are buying me stuff. I have a friend actually who did some time overseas for the British Army. He's married to a friend of mine, and he was in, what is the capital of Israel? Remind me.
Jerusalem?
No, it's Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv. He was in Tel Aviv just as a tourist after his recent tour, and he brought me back a Donald Trump yarmulke. You know what yarmulke is?
Yeah.
Like the
yeah.
No, I think sorry. Go back. I think you're right. They're moving the U.S.
Great
embassy.
Anyway, that story doesn't matter. But
Trump
it's great souvenir. Yeah.
Wow.
An all timer. He won 6 years ago. Now they're still selling Trump yarmulkes in parts of the world. Just FYI.
What a marketing machine
him,
it is.
I don't even know what to say.
and
Gene Simmons.
Simmons
have licensed everything.
I will tell you, it's the first time that friends of mine my age have thought about possibly not living in Canada for the rest of their lives. And that's changed. So I've never in my group of friends had conversations where they might not live in this country for the rest of their lives. And that I would say is a very new phenomenon over the last 24 months. So if I extrapolate this forward, one of the things I've never encountered in Canada before have been Canadians born here, educated here, doing, I would say, well here, start to think, I'm not sure this is the country where I will continue to live.
And we've seen a number of them leave already.
Some of our clients.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are just pissed off at what happened in the past, say, 12 months over here. I'm just my opinion, because they've seen what's happened and what's transpired, and they're just pissed off at a number of
Can the
different
state of Canada and our services be any worse at this point?
No.
Like
our highways
I
are
can't
full.
say
We have no housing.
I mean,
and we have no
I want to remain neutral.
I should say, I mean, to be fair, compared to a lot of other countries, yes, it can be worse, except the downward spiral it's taken in the last 12, 24, 36 months has been like, it's been so extreme that it's...
And this is where some friends that I will now just friendly debate, but will say, like, we know relative, speaking Canada's good, but you know what? I've had enough of that. Because if we know that our hospital beds are full and our traffic's full and properties are this much and we're growing our population through immigration, and our parents are immigration. This is not an anti-immigrant. I'm a product of Canadian immigration.
So are we.
Why are we not building more housing? So I don't want to give Canada a pass anymore to say, relatively speaking, it's good here. You know what? There's obvious things that need to be fixed, and we're kind of shit at it.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
I've really had enough.
But you don't want to sound like a loser either that doesn't respect other people, right?
Shit, we'll end on that.
That would be a good place to wrap. Yeah.
I just have to say thank you for keeping us for the full hour. The last time you kicked us out so fast because you had bigger and better people to see than
Which
us.
I want to talk about after. Yeah.
Yes,
Actually, I got some questions.
Still
for you
bitter
guys
about
after.
that. Very
guys,
angry.
we got to wrap this. I got to go.
Okay, see you later.
Guys, thank you for doing thanks for coming back. Thanks for coming in person. Thanks for doing what you're doing, because many people have come to us and said they just love you guys. They love the way you speak.
I didn't hear that.
I think you're bringing a voice to a topic that is very important, and you're doing it in a passionate way. And we're cheering you on. Like, we just love what you're doing.
We love what you guys do too. Thank you for having us back. We can't wait for our third appearance. I'll check my email.
I stream sats to you all the time. I'm not sure if you see it. When I listen to your podcast on Fountain, I'm streaming sats.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, cool. Thank you, Len.
So
Thank
stream
you, Len.
sats.
You are the one person streaming.
No,
by the way, I want to talk to you about Fountain a little bit. Thanks, guys. Appreciate this.
God bless.
Take care.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. You can find every new episode of the Your Life, Your Terms show on all the major streaming platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. And if you'd like to get free copies of some of the books that we've put together, like these right here, or some of the reports that we've put together, like these right here, you can find all of those at www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for now. Until next time, your life, your terms.